So this is my two-planet theory, or why human communication is actually really miraculous when it works. So if you imagine each person is a planet, okay? So we have a planet, and then you have satellites orbiting all around it. So the satellites, I like the idea of satellites. I like the image because it's man-made. And so each of these satellites is something that we have to see through or go through to get to any present moment, any present experience in the here and now. So if you can imagine, each person grows up and they take in everything that their immediate family gives them. So what the world looks like, how a man treats a woman, how we see different races, different genders, different situations, how we handle stress, how we handle love, how we handle difficulty, all sorts of different stuff that we take in, when we're very little, based on our siblings and our parents, mostly our parents, as to, what is the world? How do we see the world? How do we understand the world? Is the world threatening? Is the world welcoming? How do I need to be? Do I need to be strong? Do I need to be apprehensive? Can I be open? Blah, 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 right? So that we have, so that's kind of how we think the world is initially, right? And then we also have like all our hopes and our aspirations and our illusions and all our badly formed belief systems that are about how we want the world to be, right? So you have, how do I think the world is, and how do I want the world to be? Okay, so these are two different things that are like, these are a whole bunch of different satellites, If I'm growing up as, I don't know, a Jewish person in an environment that's anti-Semitic, if I'm growing up an African-American person in an environment that's inherently racist, if I grow up, transgender in an environment that's just not welcome to anything other than, the idea of just men and women, anything like that, right? And you end up with these different ideas, and usually a lot of these ideas are based on traumas. Someone bullied me when I was little, my parents hit me, I was subject to this sort of abuse or this sort of mistreatment, and then we take these different experiences and we create these ideas very often about the world, and often they're restrictive ideas. I can't trust because of this. I'm going to get hurt. I can't trust women. I can't trust the system. I can't trust teachers. I can't trust my parents. I can't trust people close to me, blah, 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 right? So we end up with all these different things that are, ideas about the world. And it's not necessarily true. It's based on, like a big machine in here that tries to simplify things for us. So, this is how the world is. This is how people are. This is how, love is. And so, if you get, every time you have these things, you create these assumptions and these generalizations. And these become new satellites, and new satellites, and new satellites. And there's also, by the time you're a grown adult, you've got like literally thousands of these things orbiting around you about, how we think the world is, how we think other people are, how we think social interaction is. And so if you imagine each person is this individual planet with like all these things swirling around them. And then when people try to communicate with each other and they try to talk to each other, the satellites start hitting. Especially if they get really close together. So if you actually really fall in love with someone, then everything's smashing, ding, 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 and you're just triggered all the time, right? And so I think it's really like a miracle if people can actually communicate, because it's not even just, how hard is it to talk and listen? It's how hard is it to go beyond your own preconceptions about how life is, how people are, to be able to even see the other person. To be able to see that there's another person beyond all the filters that we're looking through. And then go beyond that and see that they're talking. They have their own ideas. They have their own preconceptions, their own beliefs, their own limitations. And be able to try to reach beyond all this stuff and listen and take them in as they are, as they present themselves, how they think they are. And I try to talk. And it's all like in my own language, in my own way of seeing things, my own way of believing things. And often we just make assumptions. Oh, of course, that person thinks like I do. They understand the world like I do. They perceive the world like I do. So I send something out very often based on that. That, of course, the other person's going to understand it exactly the way I understand it. And then it goes beyond my satellites, beyond their satellites. And by the time it hits them, it's so different than what I thought I was saying. And then it goes back and forth and back and forth. And so really, I believe when you can actually achieve some sort of communication where you're seeing the other person as an independent human being that understands things and perceives things different to yourself, and you're trying to receive them in that context, and you're trying to speak to them from your context of knowing that, oh, it might not be so easy for this person to understand my assumptions based on, what happened in Montreal when I was 4 years old in, some community, or they're saying, in the case of, we have two cultures in my marriage, so my wife is Mexican, so she's brought up, sorry, I have to mention this part. So after you go beyond your family, then you have your culture, then you have your society, you have your school, you have your friends, you have your, politics, language, culture, and that's a whole other layer. That's another set of satellites is how you see the world, how you're supposed to interact. How do you do hand gestures when you speak, facial gestures, expressions, idiomatic expressions, right? So, like, when I speak with my wife, it's really like, it's like, have you ever bought one of those little marionettes? And they sell them and like, they got the little strings, and literally, like, if you have a little kid and you get them one of these, like, within an hour, there's like a million knots, and trying to, like, it's really fun or frustrating to try to, like, undo all these different knots to get it to function again. And so I find sometimes communication with my wife is like that, because there's so many different points that we don't necessarily see things the same way. And so it's this matter of like, oh, she doesn't think of this that way. She doesn't think of, something with our kid that way about, I don't know, hygiene, or about, the way that she should interact with us, or let's say it's about punishment, or, connection instead of correction, or all these different things. A lot of these things come from culture. A lot of these things you learn, and then as you get older, you start teaching yourself, and sometimes those become other filters. Anyways, all this to say, this is my two-planet theory, and I think that when people really, really try to become good communicators or good listeners, it's a gift. It's remarkable, because I've spent a lot of time thinking about what they actually have to get through. Or if you think about people who have mental illness, or someone, let's say, with an anxiety disorder, because I've struggled with anxiety, and what I could say is, in the years of my life that I had a lot of anxiety, it was a monumental effort just to show up to a conversation, just to be available to interact with another human. Required so much effort on my part to get beyond my own stuff. So if someone has depression, or if someone has, let's say, bipolar, or they have schizophrenia, it's tremendous. And these are like, it's almost like the satellites, also things that like just keep you inside your own little shell that you can't even, it's almost impossible to get out, for some people to get out. So what's the moral of the story? Next time you're speaking to someone, or someone annoys you, or you don't understand them, take a breath. Take a breath. And just consider, how different they are to you. And what does it mean, and how are they going to feel when you make the effort to actually hear them for who they are? And it's a really good exercise to try, just to try to hear someone as they're trying to be heard, as they're communicating. And I think you'll find it's remarkable the way it opens doors. So that's the two-planet theory. Have a good day.